So Kavita and Sundar, do you people have any doubts on this SSAS?
No.
Okay. But this SSAS is not mm, difficult that much. Okay, so it's easy to create. Okay.
Okay.
And one more thing, I have shared with you a book on SSIS. Okay.
Okay.
So you can find that from the Google Drive folder.
Okay.
And in the same it means in coming times I will share documents also like the project which we created on which we worked on. Okay, so I will share that SSIS package also so that you can use that package for your reference in future usage. Okay, and yes, there are some more documents, so I will be publishing that document to that same folder. Okay,
Okay.
so let's start. Uh, okay, so today our main aim is to work on this remaining task. Okay, so the remaining task is creating hierarchies and partition and roles. Roles means this creating roles is related with some security thing. Okay, so we will provide access and we will also see like what are the different security options are available in this SSAS. Okay, and obviously this second last is analyze in Excel. As we know, we have already completed this because frequently we are using this analyze in Excel. And in the end, when the whole development is completed, then we will deploy the whole SSAS tabular queue from the Visual Studio to some server, so to some production server. Okay, so we will see that also like how you can change the server name. Okay, suppose you are designing the whole thing using your local server, but in production you need to deploy that same queue on some other server. So how we will change that thing also. Okay, so let's start with today's task of creating hierarchies. Okay,
Okay.
so hierarchy, I think you people are familiar with it. Hierarchy is nothing but it's a simple concept of following from top to the granular level. So if you take an example of calendar, so the year will be the top layer, which means the first you should follow the year, and what will be the next granularity? Next should be the quarter, and after that month, and after month you will have the week number, and after week number you will have the days. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is a perfect example of creating hierarchy. So let's create this thing in our SSAS. So it is very easy to create any hierarchy. Okay, so go to this queue. I am on the same queue which we created earlier. Okay, so just switch back to the diagram view. The easiest way of creating hierarchy is to switch back to the diagram view, and there we have an option to create hierarchy from the diagram view itself. Okay, so that hierarchy will came to this dim date. Okay, so slide it, make it somewhere. Just arranging the things. So in each table you will have this icon, create hierarchy, create hierarchy. So it's you can find this icon on the top right corner. And the second one is maximize. It will just open a pop-up window for this. Okay, so you can have like this. So here is a icon for create hierarchy. So let's click on it. It will create a new column something. It will create a hierarchy name that will be seen here as a column name. So just date it as a you know year, quarter, date, year, quarter, month, and date. So that let's I'm just renaming it as year, quarter, month, and date. Okay, so YQMD. So I just created a hierarchy that will have the name like this, and we can first drag the things like on the first layer what you want, like fiscal year. So just okay, so it is doing some work here, and now we have created a hierarchy with the name of year, quarter, month, date. So YQMD, you can name it as per your requirement, but first find the year column from the table. So we have a fiscal year here, so let's drag it to this quarter, to this hierarchy which we created here. You can have a progress bar into the this region. So we created a hierarchy, but in that hierarchy we have only one column here. So now as and this is will be the top layer, and now we will bring the quarters to the next, updating it. In the same way we will drag the other columns also, quarter, and there should be month, English month name. So we drag it to month, and now let's bring down the date column. So I have to do it again and again. I don't know why I'm unable to drag this thing. Let's see the full screen mode. So leave it up to the quarter or month name only. We can, I think it's not taking as a date. I think we should have some uh, English day name of week. Is there any week number? Week number of the year. So let's drag this, and after that we will have. And you can watch the progress video here. I want this to be an upper layer. My machine is a little bit slow, so I have to wait. Okay, so we created something like fiscal year, quarter, month, and the week number of the year. So let's see like what we are trying to achieve. Okay, so we created something here. Switch back to this diagram view. We created a hierarchy name with Y QMD. Okay, so let's quickly go to this analyze in action, and let's see what is the advantage of that hierarchy. Okay, so the hierarchy we created in that form created in the dim date table. So here you can have that thing. So if you select first, so by default the all thing will all three columns. First layer will be our year, and when you click on that, then it will populate the quarter, and if you click on that, then it will populate the months, and after that you will have the week numbers. Okay, so we are just selecting one column. We are just selecting one thing from this field page. We are just selecting that hierarchy, and by default, the data will be plotted according to the hierarchy level, which means it will, in the first layer, you will have this year, and after that, you will have quarter and then months. So let's plot some values from here. So we created that count of orders. Now you can see like we got orders from some different years from 2010, 11, 12, 13, and if we want to drill down to the next level, so we decided that thing in our hierarchy, the next level should be the month. So when we click on it, so not sorry, next level will be the quarter. So when we click on that, so this the whole order, which means the 999 orders we got in 2010, and in which quarter we got that orders. So we are just bifurcating this 999 to the quarters, and if you again double expand that, so the 438 will be bifurcated further. So how we are going is we have decided a hierarchy. Okay, so here we are not going from week number to the year. We are just following the natural hierarchy, which means we created that natural hierarchy in our uh, dim date table. Okay, so if you want to view that, and the easiest way to create that hierarchy is to just switch back to the diagram view, and from there you will have this button, create hierarchy. Okay, so when you click on that, a new column like field will be created here, and you can just rename that hierarchy, and you can arrange the priority, which means which column you want to be on the top layer, and how you want to drill down to the data. Like you are deciding like after year you will have the data in quarter. You cannot have the year to the month directly. So you people have any doubts in hierarchy, like how to create hierarchy in SSCS? In the same way, you can have a next example of like product or something like manager to the next level to manage a CEO, manager, and some employee. So in the same way, you can create the other thing also, but you should know what will be the hierarchy. Any doubts
I
up
have
to
a
now?
question.
Mm-hmm.
So you have created this hierarchy by taking the columns from dim date table, right? Only one single table.
Mm-hmm.
So can I create hierarchy by, pulling the data from all different tables?
No, the
Pulling from.
table, the column should be from the same table. If you want to bring the columns from different table, then you need to have a derived column first. Okay, so you can bring, suppose like you want to just take an example of product key. If you want this product key to this table, to this dimension table, then you can have this product key to this date them if there is a valid relationship between them. So it's like a joining of tables and bringing that column to the date table. So you can have, but this hierarchy will take values from the same table. But if you want to bring from the others, so you can have a derived column in this date, and by usage of dex function, you can have that column here, and you can create. So there is a no there is no direct method, but there is a workaround for it. So just bring that column from the different table to this by adding a derived column here. By
Okay.
plotting something like here you can have those things. So here we will use that dax function. We will bring the column from this product ID to this name date, and then we will create the hierarchy.
Okay.
Okay, so hierarchy will take call tables from the same columns from the same table. Okay, and the next thing we have, okay, so there is no doubt in this hierarchy thing.
No, but like, what is the exact difference? I mean, I can, see these results by adding those columns in a table also, right?
Yes, exactly, exactly. You can do those things also, but if you want to create some single column like value, so how we are doing that thing is just simply selecting one field here, YQMD. So here we have arranged the things like the first we will have data according to the year and like this. So you can have the other thing also, like if you do not select this, you can have the data like to the, you can select those columns from here if you want. Like first you want fiscal year, and then you want month, so then you want fiscal quarter. So drag these things here. So you can have those things. You can create your custom hierarchy while plotting here. So it's nothing, it's not mandatory to have hierarchy, but if it's better to have, it's a good practice.
Okay.
So next thing is partitions. So you people are familiar with partitions of the data, as we do the same thing in the SQL database also. So partition of data is nothing, just dividing source to different partition, which means suppose we have a, how can I give you the example? So let's could do a demo, which means just go through the example and then I will explain like what is the partition. Okay, so here in this, so let's take this fact internet 6, because this fact table will have more number of rows. So now let's select like how many columns are there. So with the hold of control and shift and down, you can count the rows. Like now we are having 60,398 rows in this table. Okay, so how this SSAS will store the data? Okay, so what it is doing is it has go to this model, and there we will have, not to this model, table. Okay, here we have a partition. So partition is nothing, we will create a two page, which means we are on the fact internet sales table, and we will just create, now we are having the whole data in one page. Okay, so we have single partition here. We can store the same thing, the same 60,000 this number of rows into two pages. Okay, so let's create a new partition and how we will create that partition. So suppose the partitioning we will do on the year. Okay, so we will create a like a new page here, and we will say like this page will this page will contain the rows from after 2013, and this the next we will have before 2013. So we are just bifurcating, or we are just creating two layers of two divisions, which means we are just dividing the data before this date and after this date. Okay, so let's create these things, then we will discuss. Okay, so here you will have like I'm just renaming this underscore before 2013, and this will have, I think there is a spelling mistake in this before, so ignore it, and this will have AFT after 2013. Okay, so I have created a new two partitions here, but I haven't decided like how the filtration will work. So just go here and select, as we are naming it, like this first page will contain the data before 2010. Okay, so let's create it how we will tell this page to filter the data. So here we have a order date column. Okay, so we know each and every order will have its date. It is a mandatory thing. Obviously, order without a order date will, you will not have that kind of information here. So just go here and create a date filter. as we are creating this partition before, which means this page will contain rows which are before, which means which are before 2013. So just go through this UI thing before and simply select the date. Go to this 2013 and again for this calendar. You can have like this, or you can directly provide the date also. In 2013, I want this. Okay, so it's before. So obviously we will have the data up to 2012 December. So as you can see, is before or equal to. Click OK and come back from this new page and again do the same thing for this new page also. Go to the same column, the date filters, and after. In the same way you can provide, and for this we will select the 1st of January 2013. Okay, so it's a date. You can directly provide the date from here. Click OK. So we are just bifurcating the data, which means we are just splitting the data. And here we are not splitting the table. We are just splitting the data to store these data for this fact internet sales in two different pages. Okay, so in the backend it will create two partitions. Okay, and in two partitions it will store the data. Obviously, why we are creating these things? Because suppose we have old data which are before 2013, so that data will not get any updates. That will be remain same. Okay, and the data which are after 2013, they will contain new rows as well as the updated rows. Okay, so
Okay.
obviously we will process the second partition which are after 2013. We will not process the data which are before 2013 because they are fixed data. They will not change over a time. Okay, so suppose there is an order which was there in 2012. So the details about that order will not change in future, because obviously order you can decide like details about any order will change up to a month or up to 3 months or 4 months. So let's go and click OK. You can have these things. What it is doing is doing this. It is generating some SQL statement. Select DBO from this tables. Select star means it will select the all column from the tables where the order date is greater than 2013 one. So for this fact internet sale, you can write the SQL statement, or you can have this UI thing also. Okay, so what it is doing is it is creating some SQL statement in the backend, and it will bifurcate the data according to this where clause. And in this first, so you can have that SQL statement in this partition also. So just click on this SQL query editor. As you can see here, we are having the data before 2013, which means which are smaller than equal to this date. So come back here. Where is click OK. So we have just created a partition, but we haven't processed the partition. So when you go to this model again, and here you will have the process option. The process option is nothing but it will process the data, which means it will update the data from the source, and then it will recalculate the calculation which we are creating here, which means the measures which we created here. So here when you click on this process partition, here you will have two options. Like if you want to process the data before 2013 or if you want to process the data after 2013. Obviously, we will not process this data before 2013 because the data will have the same value. It will not change, and we will be interested in processing this after 2013. So it's a optimization thing. Okay, so it's better to have partition in our model. Okay, so if there are billions of rows, so when you suppose we have created our cube 10 days back, and now we want to update the data with the newer data because we have created the cube earlier, which means before 10 days, and now we want the data which are created between these 10 days. So why to process the whole data? Just process the year or after 2013 data. So what we are doing is it will go back to the source, which means from the SQL server we are fetching the data. It will create a filter in the SQL statement like we want the data from after 2013. We don't want the data which are before 2013 because we have already that data. So are you getting some rough view of how the partition thing is working?
Yes.
Okay, so we have created this thing for first time, so we need to process the both partition first. Click OK. Earlier we were having 60,398 rows. Now you can see like in the after and before. Okay, so we did some mistake. This before is working as a after, and this after is working as a before. Okay, so here we created a partition, which means this data will two tables we have for this two partition we are having for this one table. So close it and go back and rename it properly. Give me a second. You can have this icon or just go to this table and to the partition. You can edit the partition which you created. You can delete or create. So go to the SQL, and here what we are having for before 2013. We are having the same correct logic. So noise is cancelled. Now you can process the single partition, like go to this to the model, and you can process the only one partition because sometimes you don't want to process the data which are stale, which means that will not change. So suppose if we want to process only one part, we can update this part only. Okay. So we are not fetching again and again the whole 60,000. We are just fetching the rows which are after 2013. Are you getting the point, like why we are creating the partition and how it will work? We are just creating a partition for the same table.
Yeah,
I think
but it will only reflect, I mean, the changes or whatever, the reports which are based on this cube or this analysis. So those reports will run fast. That's what you mean?
yes, obviously. Suppose if we do not have any partitions, okay, so we do not have any partition for this table. So when we want to refresh the data, so what the SSES cube does is in the backend is like it will truncate the whole table and it will reload the whole data from the backend. The backend is the SQL server from the data warehouse from where we are fetching the data. So in that case, it will update this whole 60,000 of rows. Okay.
Okay.
And if we are having the partitions, okay, and if you are having the partition and where we'll have an option to refresh the data which are after 2013, which means we created some basic example, like we will have the data, we will have a partition after and before 2013. So if you process the after 2013, then it will obviously process the less number of rows. It means the network I/O or the data transfer will be very less, and you will have the updated data.
But what if in my report I'm pulling the data for 2012? So based on this thing, so it will not get updated, right, for the 2000 for the year 2012.
Yes, that's
So
obvious.
we won't get accurate data, right? If in any case, if I have updated some data in the for the year 2012.
In that case, you need to process the both partition. But in general, it depends on the business scenario. Like if you have sales data, then obviously it is very rare. You will update 5-year-old data. Okay, so it's good to have. If there is no case like if you are sure like you will not update the data which are in 2012, then it's good to have partition. But if you know like you will be frequently updating the uh, old data or some archived data, so then you should avoid this partition. So this partitioning thing is optimization of queue. Why we are optimizing it? Because obviously in the some future you will not have this 60,000 of those, because it will keep on increasing. So in some cases you will have this billions of record. So in that case, the only optimization option we will have is the partition. So we will only just fetch the, or we will only update the required rows, not the whole data.
Okay.
Okay, so yes, if you have like 2012 for data, suppose you are updating the data which are in 2012, so in that case you will not create partition. You should just create it as a one table only, one partition only. But in the most of the cases you will not have these kind of situation. Obviously in data warehouse you will store the historical data, and in that the historical data will be fixed. Okay, so
Mhm.
that in these kind of situation we create partitions. So
Okay.
obviously this partition is not required, but it's an optimization thing. You can have the single or you can have multiple partition, but the working of the queue will be the same. Okay, you will not see any difference.
Okay.
Okay, so in this way, if you want to create partition, just go to this table and there you will have a partition option, and from that you can create. And if you want to process the data, you will have a process partition, process table, or processor. Process all will refresh the data from all tables, which will if they are from before 2013 or after 2013.
Okay. General question. So if there are like 1 million rows in one table, so if I refresh that data without this partition and anything, so how much time does it take to refresh all the data? I mean, to truncate the data and load again?
So it depends on the calculations. Like if you are having too many, if you are having hundreds of calculation in this cube, that will also take time. And obviously it depends on the network speed, how your source is responding. If there is no data load on the source data warehouse, okay, so it will depend on the network, it will depend on the size of the rows, it will depend on the calculation which we are having in our queue. So it's not like a fixed thing. So you, in that case, you will have so many variables here.
So does it take like 4 to 5 minutes or like half an hour or 1 hour? Like, so
It depends. Okay, you cannot predict it, because suppose if you have 100 rows, and in that 100 rows you are having 200 columns.
mm-hmm.
Okay, and in another example you are having 100 rows and 20 columns. So in which case you will have the maximum time? Obviously, the rows are same, but the columns we are having different. One we are having 20 columns, and in the second option we are having 200 columns. So obviously the table which are having 200 columns will take more time,
Yeah.
because the data is huge. So it depends on the rows as well as the column and the data which we are having in that. So there is not a fixed prediction that it will only take 10 minutes, or it will take it can take more. Okay, so it can take up to 1 hour also, because if your network speed is slow, that will also create a delay.
Yeah, but just I want to know like how much difference it will make with this partition and all. I mean, like whether it is like 1 or 2 minutes or like it will,
Okay, so in the
affect.
same case, if you have partition and you are just processing the after 2013, then obviously in that case we will have less number of rows, and obviously if we have less number of rows, then it will take lesser time.
Okay,
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 so if this partitioning thing is the optimization of a queue.
okay,
So the next comes the roles. Roles is related to the security, which means when you to whom you want to provide the access. Obviously, you are the admin, as you are the creator of this queue. So you are the admin of this queue. So you can add or remove some person, like who will have the access on this queue. So to provide the access on these queue, like you have created this thing, but if we haven't deployed it, before that we want to provide the access on this queue. So you can go to this icon, or you can have through that model. Yes, from that model tab you can have these roles. So what we provide in role is like we create a new role. A role is nothing like we just take an example. We create a group of users, like for sales people you want to have the read permission only. Okay, and for some, suppose we created a new role like for developers. So so we are creating a developer role, and in that we provide like they are the administrator or they are the processor. So we provide for developers like read and process the data. So in that we created two groups, okay, two roles, which means in sales role we are providing read permission, and in the second we are providing the read and process. So for suppose we in this we will add some members to this group. Okay, so you can add some members to this group if you want. Just simply search their alias or something and add them as a member. Okay, so I think I have any user here. Yeah, suppose I am taking this Sanjay. Okay, so we can, if we can, you can add the Sanjay as a member of this salesperson. So whenever the Sanjay will try to log into this queue, the Sanjay will have only read permission. He cannot process the data, which means he cannot do alteration to the queue. Okay, and in the same way we have this developer. We created the permission for this, like whoever is in this developer role, and suppose if there are some group alias for them. So just bring that group alias here, type them and search to your location and add them as here. And whoever is in this member group, they will have this permission. So it's providing the members. And there is one more thing which we are having in this uh, SSAS tabular is we can provide some row level filtering, which means uh, up to now we are just providing access to the whole queue. So in the whole queue we are just providing like this salespersons into this whosoever is from this sales group, and like suppose Sanjay is the member of this sales role, so he can have the data, he can read the whole data from this queue. And if we want to limit the rows, okay, so suppose for dim geography we want to limit the rows, or we just do not want to share the information from this uh, dim product. Okay, so we can have like this equal to false. So this table will be not returned to this group. So the data from this table will be not returned. So here we are providing a row level filtering, which means earlier we are up to now, up to this members, we are just providing access to the whole queue, the access to the whole data. But if you want to limit the access, like you do not want to share the information from this product table, and simply put this equal to false, then the members who are in this sales role, they will not get any data from this bin product. let's see this. Click OK. So this kind of filtering or this kind of permission is known as row level, ROW level access. In this we can provide access on this some row things. So let's go, and here when we click on analyze in Excel, it gives us the permission, like now we will select this role, and let's take an example of this sales. We created a sales thing here, click OK. So we are logging to this queue from this sales thing. And we provided some, which table we provided them product. So them product we have. Here you will not find any data. Let's select this measure count of orders, and we are selecting the rows from the table which we provided a filter like false. We provided something like if whenever the user is logging from this sales row, and if the member is from this sales row, and in that case we provided a condition of false to this table, which means the data from this table will be not returned to the users who are from this sales row. So we logged in when we clicked on that analyze in Excel, and there we selected this. So analyze this cube using this sales as login to this cube using this sales role. So we did that, and our filtering is working as expected. So we are not having data from this product table, as we selected a dimension or we selected a column from this dim product, and now it is not returning any information from this dim product. Why? Because we created a filter in our roles, like from you just we denied to return the rows from this dim product. And now if we remove this thing, then we will have the data. So give me 2 minutes, it is just processing the cube again. Now go back to this Excel and right click on it and refresh. Now we are having the data, which means now we are having the color information from that color column, and what are the different values from that color column is these, like black, blue, Na, and red, silver. So again if we apply that filter like false, so those columns will be not returned, which means the information from this dim product will be not returned to the users who are from the sales role. So now we are having that count, but again I will refresh this thing. So we applied that filtering again. So what we are creating is, in SSAS we have two kind of permission. One is role level, ROLE level, and the next one is the ROW level data filtration security thing, which means we are providing security on row levels also to this row level, which is ROW level. So again go back to this and refresh. Now we'll not have the any data from that row, because we again applied that filtering. So are you getting the point, like what are the different options available in SSAS tabular, and these things comes under security.
Yes.
Any any doubts?
No.
Okay, thanks. And the next, we know like how to analyze in Excel. We are frequently doing these analyze in Excel. So in these roles, or whenever you have like how to provide security on the cube, you can do this. Go to the model and from that roles. Now suppose now we have created everything, like we have created KPI, we have created hierarchy, we have created visuals, calculated columns, we created some roles, and we did everything to this cube. Now we want to deploy it. We want to deploy it to some server. So for this, just go to this Solution Explorer. Now we name this whole queue with some project name, sample tabular. Just right click on the project name and go to this properties. And in this you will have deployment option to which server you want to deploy. Like as we have only one option to deploy it on our local server, but if you have different server name, you can provide that server name here. Okay, so suppose we want to deploy it on localhost, so let it be, and we want to rename it like underscore done. Okay, so click OK. So now we have configured it where to deploy, and now right click again on that project name and click on deploy. So it will do it will just publish this whole cube to our server and to the analysis server. So let's first deploy this, and just click yes. Now it will copy the data to our destination server. In the meantime, we can connect to the server using this SQL Server Management Studio. As you can see, it is one by one, it will fetch the data from source and it will push the data to our analysis server. I'm just opening that thing up, so my system is slow, so it will take 3-4 minutes. Now we are deploying the whole work. Analysis server to my host name connect. Yes. So now it has successfully copied the data out from this Visual Studio to the SS analysis server. Click close, and we named our deployment to be some sample tabular done. So come here. And to this we connected to our analysis server, and that there we should have our database. So here we have the database which we deployed it now. So we named that sample tabular underscore done, and in that table you will have all things. We have these kind of these are the list of table which we created using SQL Server, so that Visual Studio, and from that we created some roles. And in that roles we created two group, like for one will be the developers and next will be the sales. And when you double click on it, you will have the same window which we were getting into the Visual Studio. As you can see, we created some name, and in the membership I provided myself, so it is creating some numbers, but this is mine user alias. And in that row filter we provided that dex, which means we provided false to this dim product, which means it will not return any row from this dim product. So now you are clear, like how we have created whole thing, which means we created a tabular view inside this, and we deployed it on our local server. if you want to deploy it on different servers, so simply right click on it and go to property and just change the server name from here. Is it clear like how to deploy, which means what is the end destination?
Yes.
Okay, so this working with SSAS is not difficult, but yes, the main advantage of this SSAS is you can create these measures in the text function. Okay, and you can have security to the row levels, ROW levels. Okay, so I think we have finished this tabular. So up to now, if there is any doubt, we can discuss on those because we have 5-10 minutes more. I think you people do not have doubts because yes, to create doubt, you need to have practice sessions. Okay, so just try to create a simple queue onto your machine and yes, go ahead with step by step. And again, if you find any doubts in future class, we can again come back to these points and we can have discussion on that.
Okay.
Okay, so just try to make yourself easy to learn, not to make it difficult. So if anything is difficult for you, then you will not have, you cannot remember those things up to longer time. The other people here we have. Do you people have any doubts? Sundar, are you there? I think Sundar is not.
Yes, Sanjay.
Oh, he's there. Okay, so do you have any doubts? Like if you are feeling some.
No, I feel no.
Okay. Okay then, I think this was my today's task to finish this tabular. Okay, so the next thing will be the SSAS multidimensional. Okay, in that we'll have the same kind of work, but in that we'll have different method to create the things. Obviously, the common thing will be there in that multidimensional also we will create a fact and dimension and the measures. But there will be some difference in that. So we will in next class we will discuss like what is the difference between tabular and multidimensional and how to start with multidimensional. Obviously, in the both thing we are creating a cube and yes, we have two modes, so we need to discuss on two those modes of the SSCS. Okay, so in our next class we will discuss about the SSCS tabular and we will start with the sorry, SSCS multidimensional and we will start the thing with from simple side to the difficult. Okay, so is it okay for all people?
Yes.
Okay, so no issues. From tomorrow we will have the multidimensional, which means working on SSAS multidimensional, and for that we need to change the mode of this our SSAS. Okay, so at present we are having SSAS instance in our tabular mode. As you can see, this icon represents like your analysis server is running in tabular mode. But to work on the multidimensional, we need to change this tabular to our multidimensional. Okay, so tomorrow I will let you know how to change the mode of this analysis server. There is no direct method, but there is a another way around to change the mode of this analysis server. Because this kind of configuration comes only when you install first time. There only you will have an option. Okay, so if you want these things in tabular or multi-dimensional, I think Kavita, you are familiar with this point
Yes.
because when we were installing our this whole this whole SQL server, there we when we there is an option like in which mode you want to run this analysis server. So there we selected tabular, but we want that tabular to be in multi-dimensional mode. So because we in our next class we will prepare the whole thing, whole cube using a multi-dimensional. Okay, so for that we need to have this our local analysis server to be run in multi-dimensional mode. So tomorrow I will show you, like very quickly I will show you how to change the mode. Okay,
Okay.
so no issues. I think we are good to go for today. Okay then, bye bye and see you tomorrow at the same time. I think the time will be the 1:45 around.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
okay then, bye bye all.
Bye.